Sunsetting is this year's hill everyone is prepared and willing to die on. In the past, there was masterworking gear and how stingy it was to get the materials to even engage with the new Armor 2.0 system Bungie created, but since power level caps were added to the game with Beyond Light, hell, even before then, the focus has been on sunsetting. There's a lot of things being thrown around about why people really hate sunsetting. Some of those about how players feel like the item they just got is like a loaf of bread at the bakery. You either buy the bread the moment it's made, when it's as fresh as possible so you can get the most enjoyment out of it, or every second, every minute after, and it's just getting worse and worse. It's obviously a little more complicated than that, but that paints the picture of how people are feeling and how you're probably feeling yourself. For many other players, they say the reason they hate sunsetting is because they were finally starting to feel like they perfected their builds and were finally ready to take that build they handcrafted for themselves into the activity they were working towards using it in, just for the rug to be ripped out from underneath them. You spent all of this time and effort to crawl towards the finish line, that long-term goal you set for yourself, that moment where you get that sweet dopamine of payoff for what you accomplished, just for you to be blue-balled as that moment gets edged away from you. Eventually it just gets to be too much and you're left frustrated when you should be feeling pleasure. From the beginning of the loot pursuit, players don't want to engage, and at the end of the loot pursuit, players feel like they wasted their time. These are some of the popular reasons players are saying why they hate sunsetting, but these aren't technically because of sunsetting. Sure, sunsetting sounds like the problem, and it's definitely exacerbated the underlying sin that's plagued Destiny since its inception, but no, sunsetting was not the start of these problems. These are basically not new problems to Destiny. We've had problems with respecting the players' time and efforts and conversation about these problems for years now. These conversations we're having right now on Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, and Twitch are really symptoms of something far worse than Destiny, something that seeped itself so deep into the skeleton of the game, so deep that unless there's significant changes that truly target the core issue, I can guarantee you one thing will repeat itself. We'll get a band-aid put over sunsetting, just like we had a band-aid put over masterworking gear and enhancement cores. Just like the next hill Destiny players are ready to die on, we'll get a band-aid too. What we really need to talk about is RNG. From September 2014 when Destiny 1 launched to today, there's never been a moment where terrible RNG hasn't been the source of problems in the game. And a lot of times, it's made thousands of people quit and prevented thousands more from ever playing Destiny in the first place because they see or hear some giant roadblock is in the way. In the example of the person that spent multiple seasons, even an entire year to get their one build perfected, the problem isn't that the build is now worthless because Bungie said so. That obviously is really awful feeling, but the problem is it took all of that time to perfect that one build in the first place, and there's nothing worth your time that makes a good enough impact on gameplay for you to replace your build with. The problem is how futile it feels to perfect that build you're trying to craft, how little in control you actually are of your progress to getting there, that you're entirely at the mercy of RNG, and RNGesus is designed to keep your engagement as long as possible. Don't get me wrong, there's other issues squirming around that make sunsetting look uglier. There's the lack of new game mechanics that have an impact on gameplay, like what Warmind cells added. Of course, there's so few enemies ever in play, so moments are few and far between where we can actually use these impactful game mechanics that we're supposed to be working towards. Even with these other issues going on, each player should be able to set a target for themselves, whether that goal be PvE or PvP focused, and know that it's achievable in a reasonable amount of time for a respectable amount of effort and be in control of what they do moving forward. If they're a more casual player, meaning someone with less free time, they should be able to shoot for a really interesting build with meaningful impact on gameplay, and the RNG shouldn't be and feel insurmountable. That players should feel comfortable knowing they'll reach their goal and have plenty of time to test out their new toys. Look, I'm not here to tell you what to think. Hate sunsetting, love sunsetting, completely indifferent to sunsetting. You're free to choose how you feel, but I think we really need to talk more about the actual problem. Because even if sunsetting gets reverted tomorrow, we're still gonna have the same types of problems driving players away. Let's talk about what we can do to fix this. Over a year ago, if you ask anyone what their favorite piece of content was, they tell you all about the great things in the menagerie. Sure, it had some issues like not enough drops once we found a cheese to get a bunch of drops from the chest, or heroic mode being way too annoying and not worth running repeatedly, but there's never really been a better moment for players against RNG. Many of the same randomness was there that's always been there, but players were also given more control over their outcome than ever before. A player could choose what weapon or armor piece they got, and they could choose the masterwork on the weapon. Too much more control than that, and we're probably just crafting gear at that point, which takes a lot of the fun out of pursuing and earning gear, but it proves something very important. It proved that less RNG feels really, really awesome. We saw a healthy player engagement, even if players dropped off halfway through the season like they naturally should do, but players leave feeling good. They feel good about the time they invested in getting what they wanted. They feel good about knowing when they return for the next content drop, they'll feel good again. And you feel that sense of accomplishment, that sweet, sweet dopamine of achieving the goals you created. We've just lost sight of that along the way. We focused more and more about filling each moment with more destiny instead of more destiny that feels good. About squeezing out as much time playing instead of the quality of that time. About hoping you're lucky enough to see the drop you're chasing have an okay roll so you can end your misery, because what's the point in chasing your goal when you can't reach it? No, it's not great that you have a timer ticking down showing how much time you have left to get something. It should be a timer ticking down to when you'll want to put down that perfect weapon you earned that you had a lot of time to wield while it made a really enjoyable impact on your gameplay, when now it's time to get something cooler to play with because there's something new that changes your gameplay. We need to be showered with the loot we want to get, have more control over the quality of that loot, and have new loot that makes a bigger impact when we press the trigger. And it all starts with less RNG that respects the player's time. Spread the word, guys. Less RNG and more control to reach our individual player goals is a conversation we need to keep having. One that's just as important to be heard now as it's ever been. Sunsetting isn't the root of the problem. It taking you an entire year to maybe get the thing you want is the problem. It feeling like a waste of your time to chase after uninteresting loot that doesn't meaningfully change gameplay is the problem. Not having the type of replayable content that also gives us tons of moments to use that gear is the problem. Let's change that together. Subscribe to the channel for more content and like this video to help me out. Thanks for watching.
This whole world twice, if I could be a paradise.